How you doing? It's Colin Daniel here from riffninja.com. I'm here to give you a lesson on purchasing an acoustic guitar. If you'd like to find out more about my lessons, follow the link at the bottom of the page here. So let's get started. Buying an acoustic guitar. Well, man, there sure is a lot. By the way, this lesson is a combination of all these different comments I've got from teaching online. And it seems that there's a real need for this lesson, which is why I'm doing this. It seems that a lot of my students and past students and could have used this long before they even started their lessons. So I'm going to try and keep it to this more simpler things. I'm not going to get into the tone woods part, like what woods each guitar is made out of or anything like that. But I'm going to give you some practical advice on how to buy one, especially if you don't know what you're doing at all or don't have any idea of what you want in a guitar. First thing I'd like to end is the notion that you should start on an acoustic guitar first. That's not true. It's your choice. Electric or acoustic, it doesn't really matter. The finger movements are the same. So now that we've got that out of the way, we can, if you've still decided that you want an acoustic because you like it better, for portability, it's no different. You can nowadays you can get a little battery-powered amp that's no bigger than this, and it can clip right onto your belt. Very portable, and you can buy small 3/4 size travel guitars, so that's portable too. So you can't use the excuse that the acoustic guitar is more portable. You're picking an acoustic guitar because that's what you're attracted to, and that's the sound you love to hear, and you might want to play around the campfire, but again, don't restrict yourself to playing around the campfire with just an acoustic, because you could do that with an electric, with one of those super cool little battery powered amps I was just mentioning. Now, getting on with the story, well, where do I start? You have to find a budget. You have to kind of have an idea of what your price range is going to be. Should a beginner buy a cheap guitar? Not necessarily, no. Should you buy one at a department store? No. You buy one at a department store, I'm going to come and break your fingers, all of them. Don't buy your guitar at a department store. Now, I'm not against department stores. What most people don't understand is the reason why you don't buy a guitar at a department store isn't because the price isn't good or the quality. Usually the quality is a little lower because, say for example, they get a company like Yamaha and Costco, for example, will sell Yamaha guitars. And they're an incredibly good price, and they come like in a little kit, with a tuner and a little gig bag and a guitar stand, a few other goodies. The problem with those guitars, first of all, they're a little bit lower quality than what, not all the time, than what you'd buy at a music store. Usually those instruments are built specifically for a particular department store. So I don't think the quality is quite as good. But the biggest issue, forget about the quality, because we can fix any guitar, whether it's a real good one or a cheap one. You can get it fixed. But the problem is the storing and handling of the guitars. Now, some music stores are very good handling their guitars. I was just reading an ad on the company Sweetwater. It's on the internet. I don't think they really have a storefront, but you know that they store all their guitars in a humidity controlled environment, which is what especially if you're going to be buying a decent guitar. The problem is with a lower price guitar when you're buying one, if they're not treated fairly well, they tend to change more than the expensive guitars do sometimes. The wood shifts in them can make an instrument very unplayable or difficult to play or stay in tune. And these are some of the issues we're going to address today. I would say your best bet would be to go to a local music store. And when you go to the local music store, take somebody with you that knows how to play. Now, depending on the music store you go to, some music stores work through commission for their sales and some don't. You can always ask the salesman right up front, are you a commission sales or are you just paid by the hour? I think most of the serious music stores won't be commissioned because they don't want their salespeople to just sell you anything. They want their salespeople to cater to your needs and find you something that's suitable for you. Some recommendations for you would be to have you got a friend that plays even a little bit. Say you don't play at all and you want to buy a guitar and you're going, oh man, I don't know what to buy, I don't know what to do. The first thing you could do is round up somebody that does play and ask them if they'll assist you by coming to a music stores with you. You know, maybe do a couple stores in a trip, and then you like, don't buy a guitar right away. Sit back and think about it a little bit, especially if you're going to spend a little more money. I'll talk about the price of a guitar in a minute, but bring a friend. If you don't have any friends like that and you don't have any help like that, go to a music store that's used to dealing with a beginner and be honest. And I've told this to my students a lot. I have a really good story about one of my students that was an older student in his late 50s, and he was going to New York for a trip and wanted to buy an acoustic guitar, but felt really out of place in this professional music store in New York. I won't mention any names. They were a really good store. They really treated him well, though, and I appreciate that. I told him what he has to do is be honest right away. Tell him the budget you have, which he did. He wanted to spend about $1,500 to $2,000 on a good acoustic guitar. It didn't have to be new, but he wanted to hear them, and he felt really inadequate about playing them. And so I told him, tell him the truth. Tell him that your teacher recommended that you go to the person that's at the counter or the person that's taking care of you and tell him the truth. Tell him that you don't know much about the guitar yet, but you want a decent one, and you don't feel very adequate about playing the guitar. Would you play some guitar for me and show me some guitars? You know what? When you approach most professional music stores with that attitude, you're not going to have a problem at all. You've given them a budget to work with. You've given them an idea of what you want. You've given them the truth as far as knowing you don't know much about the guitar. That'll really help. It'll really get you off on the right foot. If you come in there being a total fool, they're going to ignore you because they don't, you have to be a little bit educated. Like, you should at least have an idea. One, your budget. Two, there's different styles of guitars, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But two, know that you're buying an acoustic guitar, not an electric or anything else. And know that whether you want a pickup in it or not, too, that will narrow the field down quite a bit. Pickup or no pickup, that will be another question we're going to answer in this lesson. But so what I'm saying to you is these professional people at the counter, most of them are hired because they're good players and they know a lot about instruments and they're good with people. And the owner, or maybe you'll be speaking to the owner themselves at a smaller music store, they don't want to sell you something that you're unhappy with. And they'll know how to play a little bit. And if, like I said, if you can bring a friend along that plays a little bit, that helps a lot too. And what do? Well, you get that friend to play, or you get that sales rep or the owner of the store to play some guitar for you. Ask them to play one of their favorite songs on an acoustic guitar. Ask them to strum a G or a C chord, or ask, if you don't know any of that, then ask them just to play something. Sit back and listen to the guitar. Stand close to the guitar. Walk away from the guitar a little bit. Listen to the sound. When you change guitars, like if you're checking out different guitars, a lot of places will have a quote unquote an acoustic room, right, where you can go in and check them out. You might want to get them to play it in a different room. Switch the guitars around. Be polite and say, I'm not sure about the way that guitar sounds in this room. Could you play it outside in the main room? And then you can hear the guitar from a different point of view, because what's going to happen is your guitar is going to sound different at home than it did at the music store. And you have to kind of get a feel for the guitar. And you don't have to be as fussy in a less expensive guitar, but if you're going to spend like $600, $700, $800 and more for a guitar, you're allowed to be a little more fussy. You can, that's acceptable. If you're buying a $150 guitar, then the main thing is going to be what I talk about in a minute, and that is action, string height. Because a cheaper guitar, some will, like in the $300 to $400 range, you can find some that are just sound incredibly good and others that don't sound as good. A lot of that is personal preference. You can even ask the counter people and say, what guitar in the price range that I'm looking for do you like? And start there, because that's another good place to start. I've had years and years of retail experience too, among traveling and touring as a guitar player. I think most musicians have had experiences like that where the gigs aren't around, you're in a downtime, so you're working in a music store, or you work for a little while because you can't travel for whatever reasons. I've done all, I mean, at one point in my life, I purchased for a very big music store, I was purchasing 500 guitars at a time from all over the world, importing them. And you really have to know what you're doing when you're buying that many guitars. You have to inspect them very carefully. Now, you're only buying one guitar, right? And yes, some of the same model are better than others. Don't buy by color. Don't buy by shape or looks. Buy by the sound. And the next thing is the feel. Now, once you've found a guitar that you think you like the feel of, you'll need to sit with it. You should think about things like your body size. Like if you're a small person in stature, you don't want to buy a big guitar. See, this is a Dreadnought, and I'll talk about this some more. This is an expensive guitar here. It's my favorite acoustic I've got for strumming G, C, and D on it. It sounds just amazing. Like when I strum a G on this guitar, it sounds gorgeous. That G, I love the sound of it. That's why I bought it, because I love the sound of that guitar. There were other guitars that were less. I didn't mind them, but I really liked the sound of this. And then the very last thing I liked about the guitar was the finish, the way it looked. The number one thing I liked about it was the sound. I didn't think about the tone woods, like the wood that the instrument's made of, because they make guitars out of many different types of wood. I didn't think about the brand name or the price. I liked the sound so much. The very next thing that I liked, besides the sound, was the feel of the neck, and that is a very important thing. The feel of the neck. I've got a fairly big hand, as you can see. My palm is big, and my fingers are a little shorter, right? Everybody has a different type of hand. Do not buy a guitar that has a real blocky neck if you've got a tiny hand. So my advice, because I can't help each and every one of you individually, I have to do a general rule thing here, a general explanation, right? And so my generality to it would be, sit down with the guitar and put your hand around the neck and ask yourself, can I reach all the strings easily with my fingers? Can I picture myself playing this instrument and having my hand wrapped around it in different ways? And don't be shy to pick up the guitar and sit with it. The people at music stores don't mind. You just have to be polite. If there's one thing I couldn't stand when I was selling in a music store, the one thing I couldn't stand was somebody that didn't know what they were doing and acted like they did know what they're doing and try to grind me on a price when they had no idea, they hadn't checked out any other prices. Don't grind. Shop first. Then if you found a guitar that you like in another store, but you found another one of the same model, but you like the one better in the other store because you like the sound of it, you like the feel of it, then go back to them and politely say, hey, you know what? I really like the guitar here, although I looked at the same model at such and such music store or online or whatever. I like this one and I'd like to buy this one. Can you come close to that price or match it? And be nice about it, right? Because more than likely they'll be able to. Most music stores will at least match or get close to match. They might throw in something. They might throw in some picks or another set of strings or something, or there might be some other bonus that they can work out for you. So, yeah, don't grind somebody on a price right away. Don't do that. When you find a guitar you like, say, okay, I'll think about it, and go check out a few more in another store before you, because you never know what's out there until you check. So the neck is really important. You've got to wrap your hand around it and think. You got to sit with the guitar. If you've got a small body, this type, if you're a female, you got a small hand, this would not be the guitar for you, because although this neck is beautiful for me, for my hand, you might have a more awkward time because it's thick this way. It's thick this way. And it's not that wide this way, width-wise, string width, but it is thicker. But I've got a big hand. It's the shape I like, the roundness of the neck that I like. It's a little bit thick for me, but I like how nice and round it is and how my hand sits around the neck. So those are my reasons. And then, of course, that's all I can do for you is tell you that. For you ladies, they make some beautiful, what they call parlor guitars or folk guitars, which I'll get to in a minute, because as you see over here, I brought a few of my friends with me, and a guitar doesn't have to be expensive, and we're going to talk about that in a second, the price point. But that's one of the most important things. Do not buy by color, do not buy by brand, do not buy by looks. Buy by sound and the feel of the neck and how it feels when you're sitting with the guitar. Pick a guitar that suits your stature. See, the body's big back here. If you've got a small arm, if you've got small arms, you're going to have a hard time. You're going to wrestle with the thing. Remember, a guitar isn't a greased alligator you're wrestling in a mud pit, okay? You want to be able to sit comfortably with it. That's why I say once you think you found a guitar you might be interested in purchasing, even if you don't know how to play, sit down with it and just wrap your hand around the neck and picture yourself playing it, okay? So that covers that part. I'm going to talk about parts of the guitar too as we go through this, but I want to share something with you on price. Now, this guitar is over the $3,000 mark, this one. And it took me a long time before I could afford this guitar, to be honest with you. I dreamed about one of these for a long time, but I had to wait till finances were right and when I was ready. Now, when they started reissuing these, this is a 2005 Gibson Hummingbird. It's got spruce top and mahogany sides and back. This is a sound I like on this guitar. It's lovely. It sounds beautiful. All my open chords sound really nice. It just makes me want to play, and that's what a guitar is all about. If you like the sound of it, and it makes you want to pick it up because it feels good and you can sit with it. And that's not always true. The guitar has to be really expensive. This is the max I've ever paid for an acoustic guitar, right here. This is the for me personally. I mean, you can spend a lot more than that on an acoustic. You can spend $10,000-$20,000 on an acoustic guitar. That's not saying it's any better or not. You know, it's a personal thing. I've got some guitars back here, old, new, used, cheap, expensive, you know, and we'll go over them. Just remember that rule about the neck. And I like several different shapes of necks, not just one in particular. But for this guitar and the shape of the body, the neck feels good. Another thing, you can, on a cheaper guitar, you can run your fingers along the edge where the frets meet the edge. The frets are these little metal pieces of wire here that go across, and that's what you push your strings down against, and that's what makes your sound. But when you're moving up and down the fretboard, these the edges of the frets can get sharp because when they put the frets in, they could cut them a little too long, or the wood shrinks over time because when they're built offshore, like this one was built in the U.S., but even a U.S. built guitar can shrink. It can change. Wood has got its own personality, and sometimes even if it was cut from the same tree, the wood will act differently. And there's some issues, and I'll talk about them as we get into it. And this is one of them. Frets. You see, the frets are these metal pieces of metal that they embed into the fingerboard. This is the fingerboard of the guitar where you fret, where you put your fingers down and press down on, and that's what gets your sound. So these frets can be sharp along the edges, and if you just run your fingers along the edge of the fretboard, you can feel whether they're sharp or not. Like I said, you got to picture your hand moving up and down the fretboard, you know. By the way, this guitar plays nice in the upper registers too, just not only open. And if you're buying a cheaper guitar, you might want to ask whoever's demoing the guitar for you to ask them, how does the guitar feel when you're playing higher up on the guitar? Because there's a thing called action. Action is, let's see if we can do this like this. Action is the height of the string to the fretboard. Now the closer, depending on the player, like you see, if you get somebody, the height of the string, how much movement it has before, when you press down the string onto the fret, how much distance there is from the time you start pushing the string towards the fret and when the string touches the fret. That's called the action. Now, if the guitar has a fairly low action, it's easier to play, but it could also cause fret buzz. Now, this guitar won't buzz because it's set up properly, but I'll see if I can get it. Yeah, there. Hear that? That's fret buzz. Now, this fret buzz is caused because I don't have my finger pressing on the string properly. But you can hear that kind of a noise. That kind of a noise, that's what fret buzz sounds like. Even if on a cheap guitar, if the action is too low, it plays easy, but when you strum it, it starts to buzz out, right? That's called fret buzz. You'll hear every note in this guitar is beautiful and clear. That's what I like about this guitar, right? So you see, there's a whole bunch of reasons. I played this guitar for quite a while before I bought it, probably a couple hours, you know. And then I decided, you know what? I love this thing. And I actually had been looking at them months before, and then said, no, I'm going to wait. I took a while to think about it. But as I tried other guitars, I realized that this one sounded so good to me that I had to go back and get it. So those are some of the things. Action can be changed. That's the other thing. And we'll talk about that a little more in a minute. Action can be changed. I'm going to pick up another guitar and then we'll go into the subject of action some more. But action can be changed if the guitar is adjustable or if it's not too badly out. So we'll take a cheaper guitar and we'll discuss that in a minute. So it's not so much the price. Now I'm going to go over and get this guitar here. I'm going to switch for a minute. Now here's a good example of a Parlor guitar, okay? This is a small bodied guitar right here. Now it'll take me a minute to adjust because this neck is actually narrower and it's not as thick either. It's narrow widthwise and not as thick. But it's a lovely sounding guitar and it's a nice guitar. I really like it. It sounds good, you know. So it's got a good sound. It definitely sounds different than the Gibson. This is a Hagstrom, made in China. I paid less than $200 for this guitar. I bought it because I was doing some traveling and had to take the plane. And this is a great guitar size for a carry-on. You put it in a gig bag. A gig bag is like a nylon bag. with some padding on it that you can carry your guitar in, and you can take it onto the plane. I still wanted a guitar that played good and sounded good. I was traveling for 3 months. I don't go anywhere without my guitar. Now you'll notice that the action is really low, just like on my Gibson. And that's because I happen to be a guitar mechanic. That's my hobby. I did it for a while as a living, but I decided that I would much rather teach people how to play than fix their broken guitars. But my hobby is to take old guitars, and you'll see in a minute, take old guitars that are really a bargain but have a potential to be great sounding guitars, and tweak them, like this one. Now on a cheap guitar you have a thing called the belly up. This is the bridge right here on the guitar. And what happens is there's a great amount of tension on the strings. With a set of tens, which is that's the gauge, 10,000ths, going from first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, to go thinner to thicker. First string is the thinnest, right? The tension is well over 120 pounds. I don't know what that is in kilograms. I think around 65 kilograms. So there's this pressure. This bridge is glued onto the top of the guitar here, right? And there's this pressure happening because the strings are sitting in there and they're doing this, right? Now on a cheap guitar, if you look really close, right in here, a lot of times if they've been stored properly, you look in the light the right way and there'll be flaw in the finish, or it won't be flat. You'll see from the finish. Now this one is a matte finish, so it's harder to see, but if you look into the light, you'll be able to see whether there's a bubble here or not. Because what happens is the pressure of the string wants to pull this bridge up, and it starts to pull the top, especially if it's a cheaper guitar, a ply top. I prefer to go to a solid top because a solid top is a little more stabler, but that's more bucks, right? If you don't have the bucks and you're buying a ply top guitar, some of them can still be really good. I own a couple of ply top guitars that I like the sound of. And you know, they're not that expensive, $200. This isn't though. I got a deal on it. It was like a one-off. Hagstrom made a few of these. It was a special edition. You can't get them anymore. You might be able to get one used online or something. It was pretty good for guitar for $200. I really liked it. It was under, I think it was 175, and it came with a gig bag too. But under $200. What did I do to the guitar? Set it up. It needed some adjustment. Now temperature change will definitely change the guitar. For example, I had to travel to Indonesia and the Philippines with this guitar, and when I did, it changed. I took tools along with me because I knew it would. You see, temperature changes the instrument, the way it reacts. So just because a guitar has higher action or is buzzing doesn't mean that it can't be a good guitar with a little bit of adjustment. There's several things you can do. You can sight down the neck. What I'm doing here is use the string as a straight edge, and this part of the neck here, I compare the string by looking into the light. I compare the string, which is my straight edge, and as you see how I'm handling the guitar, I'm not bumping it on the ground or anything. You can also sight by looking up, but don't bang the guitar when you're buying a new guitar. Be careful of where you do that, right? But you can sight the guitar by using the string as your straight edge, and then you take a look at how straight the neck is here by using your string as the guide, right? Now the neck should have a little curve to it. The neck should be curved because the string is pulling on the neck. You know, as the string is sitting over the neck, it'll pull a bit on the neck like that. That's okay to have a little bit of what I would call concave, right? The neck's pulled like this as a string. If it's the other way, where there's a high spot in the neck, that could be a problem. You might want to look for a guitar that has a little, not too much, because too much concave, too much curve, there's too much height, like that definitely affects the action, right? All these guitars needed adjustment. All the offshore guitars need adjustment. That's another thing I'm going to talk to you about. Do not attempt the adjustment yourself. It's better off like equate that into your budget. Say you've got a budget of $300. Okay, look for a guitar around the 200, 225 mark and put a few bucks aside for a good instrument technician to go over the instrument, and I'll talk about that a little more as we get into it. You need and sometimes the music stores have in-house technicians, but what I would do more than anything is I would get a recommendation. If you are going to leave your guitar with somebody to set it up, because that's what needs to be done, is set up. All guitars need to be set up. The Gibson over here, the expensive one, you would think that I wouldn't need to set it up, but it's a piece of wood and it's settled. I set it up myself, but it didn't need as much as, say, this one needed more work, for sure, than my Gibson. But I picked that the best I could find, right? But it still needed some adjustment to play to the way I like it to play. And this guitar needed more adjustment, but it plays really well now. It doesn't cost you that much more. Look, a good technician for, I would say, between $50 to $75, depending on where you are, can tweak your guitar if he or she knows what they're doing. If they're a guitar builder, that helps, because usually people that build acoustic guitars know a lot about them, and if they offer setups, it'll be a good setup because they understand the instrument. If you get a guy that's just a technician that's just specializing in setups, they can be very good too. Your guitar should only be left for a week max to do a setup, and it shouldn't cost you, at the max, if your guitar was really rough, it should only cost you about $100 to get it set up, unless there's something seriously wrong with it. Now, sometimes spending more money on a guitar is okay if the guitar is worth more and you purchased it at a very good price, which I'll get to in a minute. But for this one, I would say that my labor on it was about $70. So I paid $175 for the guitar and another $75 in labor, so $250, and I've got a great guitar. Once the guitar is set up, it's usually good, unless you store your guitar by a window when the sun is coming through it, or by the window when it's really cold and it's a single pane, or even like if you can feel the cold coming off the window, it's definitely affecting your guitar. Close to a heat register, a place where there isn't a lot of air circulation, like in a basement where it's damp, can affect your guitar. Guitars like moderately dry, not seriously dry, but moderately dry. Too much humidity is hard on it. Not enough is hard on it. You can buy humidifiers for instruments that aren't getting enough humidity, and you can use silicone dehumidifiers, silicone humidity absorbers in your guitar case, depending on where you live. And you can always ask the advice of the mechanic that you're going to get to set up your guitar when you buy it. Because really, if any of you have ever had a problem and you've tried before to play, say, an F chord, and you can't get it because you think you've got small hands, or you think it's just you don't have the strength in it, that's not true. Usually the biggest problem is in the setup of the instrument. It's the action, especially for the ladies. I can't tell you in my career how many students I've had that I've taken on that have given me this statement, oh, I'll never be able to play an F bar chord. It's impossible. My hand isn't strong enough. First thing I say to a person like that, and it's usually the ladies more than the guys because they have smaller hands, right? And the first thing I'll ask them is, can I see your guitar? And usually it's a string height issue. Sometimes it's down at the string nut here. This is a string nut. Most guitars have them. Some have different styles where they have a fret in front of it. I'll show you something like that as we go along. But this is a string nut, and it keeps your string spaced, and it keeps tension on the string. And this is where your string starts to vibrate. From this string nut, here's the bridge I was talking about earlier, and this is the saddle, this little piece of white bone or bone type material plastic or whatever, depends on it. On this one, it's called a tusk. It's supposed to be a material that mimics bone, but it isn't bone. It's like a plastic of some sort. And it's pretty good. Like I said, I go by sound, not by the woods or anything else, right? When I bought this guitar, I looked at it, I played it, I strummed a few chords on it, I went, this got a good sound to it. Needs some adjusting, but it's got a good sound to it. I'll take it, you know. And of course, I sighted down the neck like I was talking to you about. There are other things about it. The tuning pegs or machine heads, that's where your strings are wrapped around. These are good quality. You can see on the back. These are enclosed. And they also have a tension adjustment. At the end, you'll see a little star-shaped or flat-shaped screw. That's for tension adjustments, so when they come loose, you can tighten them down a bit so they keep the guitar in tune better. These are fairly good quality, but that's not to say that you can't buy a guitar, an expensive acoustic guitar with open gear machine heads, because there are expensive guitars that come with a very good quality open gear machine head too. So those are some things to consider with the machine heads. So with this guitar technician thing, a couple things to mention, and that is, if you know somebody's a professional player, ask them where they take their instrument for repairs. Ask them if they're happy about it. If you go to a guy that's repairing guitars, ask him for a recommendation. Just say, I know my guitar isn't the most expensive guitar in the world, but it's really precious to me and it's personal. And they'll understand that. If they're a good technician, they'll understand how personal it is, your guitar. I once bought a classical guitar for $175, and I was really busy, but I wanted the guitar fixed. So I gave the guitar to somebody that had been recommended to me, and he wanted to prove himself to me as a guitar technician because he wanted some more of my business from my students. So I sacrificed this guitar and gave him this guitar. Well, the truth is, when I got it back, I didn't like it at all, and I redid it myself. None of it was done to my expectations at all. So needless to say, that particular technician did not get my work and hasn't gotten any work from me since. I don't know if there's a way he could ever redeem himself, because I've seen work from him that I don't like. So I wouldn't recommend him. So you see, it's good to ask when you're checking out a technician if he's got some referrals or recommendations. You know, you can ask a music store if they know a good guitar repairman, because they've got a lot of guitars, and they usually have to take their guitars as somebody they can really trust, and they'll usually know somebody that's pretty good. If you have to make an appointment, that's fine. That means he's probably busy. A good technician is usually busy, and there's usually, like I said, a time period, a week, 2 weeks max for a setup. Any more than 2 weeks to wait for a setup, that's a bit too much, unless the guy is extremely busy and he's and in that case, you make an appointment with the guy and you wait, and he'll say to you, bring it in on this and this day, and you'll have it back the next week. And that'd be how a professional mechanic would deal with that. So those are my recommendations, but definitely get a mechanic, and don't get your friend that thinks they know what they're doing with guitars to adjust it. With an acoustic guitar, it's a lot more sensitive than with an electric. Now, I want to talk a little more about different types of guitars. I've talked to you about, this is a lower priced guitar, and the size of the body would be very good for a female, a smaller in stature, because the body is smaller. You'll see when I put it up against the Gibson that there's about an inch and a half an inch on either side. The body is smaller, okay? It's smaller. So for you girls, it's easier to handle. So for you girls that are struggling with it, that's one of the reasons, is the body size. The other reason is the action, the string height. And then there's one more thing, and that's the technique of your bar chord. And that you would have to come and see me for. I don't know what else to say to you. I'd have to give you a lesson on playing the F bar chord. You'll have to check out my site for that. But your first thing is to get a guitar that's... See, a guitar is like anything else. It's mechanical. Do you buy a car right off the lot and drive it off the lot the same day? No, you don't. They take the car and they do their 70 or 120 point checkup. If it's a brand new car, if it's General Motors or Ford or whatever you buy your car from, they have a specific step-by-step process that mechanic has to go through, that they want the mechanic and the dealership to adhere to check the car before it's ready for the road. Well, before your guitar is ready to enjoy and play, you need a really good mechanic to check it over. I don't care whether you just spent $5,000 on the guitar. If it's not playing, and it depends. Like if I buy a guitar from a luthier, like somebody that builds guitars, you can go back to the luthier and say, hey, change this or that. But when you're buying, like, say, a Gibson from the store, then the store is your representative. So if I had a problem with that guitar and I didn't like it and I wasn't happy, there's warranty on it, and I would then have to deal with the store. I would more than likely, if the instrument settled just a bit and gave me some trouble, I would just repair it myself. But if it was too much of an issue, because even on an expensive guitar, you can get quirks. That's why you don't buy by brand or name. You buy by per guitar, right? Because you could get a bad one like this cheap Hagstrom and not know it if you didn't know what you were buying. Now, I've got another guitar back here. This one here. This is talking about spending a little more money. Now, if you look at this closely, it's kind of beat up. But it's an awesome guitar. Now, this one is set up and it's tuned a whole step lower, yes? Those are some of the reasons why I have different guitars, because they're tuned to different tunings. See, the tension on the string, again, as I was saying, the string tension affects the guitar neck. More string tension can bow your neck more, right? It has to be adjusted. A good guitar will have a tension adjustment. See on this guitar, there's a cap up here. That's the tension adjustment for the truss rod, which is a metal rod that goes through the back of the neck. It's in between it's sandwiched in between this fingerboard and the back of your neck. So the fingerboard's here, the rest of your neck's there, and there's a hole or a trough, right? Like a little cutout, and this metal rod about the thickness of a pencil, maybe just a little thicker, that goes from this end of the neck to this end. And it compensates for the huge tension on the string. You know, the string's pulling the neck like this, the rod pulls it back. Now, you don't want a neck too straight. You want just a slight curve to it, because the string vibrates more to the center, like where it's closer to the center. So the neck should have a natural, just a slight bow to it, where there's a little more room here, like in between, say, the 5th to 9th frets area, because here's your position markers. Here I have a position marker for the 3rd, like 1, 2, 3. You always play behind the fret. 3rd fret, 5th fret, 7th fret, somewhere in this area, 7th, 9th fret, it should have just a little bit of a neck curve, a curve going towards the string tension, like the string's pulling above it, then the curve of the neck should curve towards, it should be, you picture the string pulling on either end of this neck, right? So the neck's going to do this, right? The string's above it, okay? This guitar I bought in a pawn shop. This is a 1972 or 74, somewhere in that age. Framus, made in Germany. Now, it didn't look this nice when I bought it. Now, this is a big body guitar. It's heavy. For a small person, may not be the best. But the neck on it is very, very thin, and it's not very wide. So if you had a smaller hand, this might be just the solution for you. I liked it because the neck felt good, and when I strummed the chords on it, it wasn't playing very good, but I could hear the tone of the guitar, which you can hear right now. Now, all my guitars have good sound and they're easy to play. reason being, again, I'm a mechanic. Now, I bought this guitar, and it took me about a year because I just kind of tinkered with it in my spare time. Yeah, the finish was rough on it, but this guitar is old, and I didn't want to mess with it too much. I cleaned it up. It was pretty rough when I bought it at the pawn shop. I paid $250 for it at the pawn shop and spent another $150 on it in my time and my labor. No real parts. I put a new set of bridge pins in here. That's the only thing. These little pins, by the way, are the bridge pins here. They come in black, they come in wood, they come in all kinds of... Some are plastic. These are just plain plastic black bridge pins. Nothing special, but they fit real good on this guitar. And they hold the ball end of the string. When you look at a set of strings, it has this brass with a hole in it, kind of a ball end, and the string is wrapped around the ball end. And that's what stops the string from coming through. And then, of course, you wrap the string around the other end of the machine head here, the machine head post. Now, you'll notice on this guitar, what do you know? We have open gears. We have the open gears here. We don't have enclosed like on the Hagstrom. But you know what? These are a fairly good quality machine head, and they can be adjusted and lubricated with a little bit of Vaseline. Yeah, a little bit of petroleum jelly works really good. Just a little bit on a toothpick. You know, you work it into the worm gear there. And then turn the machine heads. Don't do that with the strings on. You got to do it with it off. That's usually the job of a mechanic. If you've got a good mechanic that knows what they're doing, they'll tighten the machine heads up for you. But I'm real particular, so I get all the little details, but it takes me a little longer. So you see, it's not necessarily a quality guitar that has fully enclosed machine heads. Some of them, like this one, have open gear, and they're actually not a bad machine head at all, and keeps the guitar in tune. But they do have a tension adjustment on it at the top of the gear. The screw that holds the gear in place actually has a bit of a tension adjustment on it. So this guitar to replace would be close to $1,000, maybe more, you know, for a guitar of this quality, because it's beautiful spruce and maple. You know, it's got marks on the back, but there's no serious damage. There was one spot that had been damaged here on the side. You can see it had been a bit of a repair. I didn't do that repair. It was there already. But it wasn't bad. It was still really a good, a fairly decent repair on it. Somebody did the repair. Somebody else had worked on the guitar. I did mostly fret work and cleaning it up and a setup. But this is a beautiful guitar. And don't refinish an old guitar if the finish is still on it. Even if it looks a little worn and tattered, you're better to leave the old finish on it. Sometimes when you take the old finish off the guitar, you ruin the guitar. And you take away from its vintage value if there's any. I don't know if there's a lot of vintage value. I think I've seen these on the internet for like $350, $400. They're nice guitars. They're a little quirky. They're a little on the big side. Some people don't like the sound of them at all. I like the sound of this particular guitar. I've got another one, Framus, another Framus, which has a different type of neck than this. This is a one-piece neck, which is why it's got this big piece of chrome here. This is called a string T. And the reason why it has a string T there is because this neck was made out of one piece of wood here, and it's flat. It's not like a lot of the other acoustic guitars. The neck's here, and then the headstock. This is the headstock where the machine heads are on. The headstock is tilted, and the reason why the headstock is tilted on the guitar is to keep the string tension on the string nut here, right? But when they don't have that, and they have this, you can see it, right? You can take a look. This headstock here is pretty much flat against. So you see this string T here, this string tensioner here, actually presses down on the nut, presses down and keeps the tension on the string nut so that you don't get any rattles. And that's what that's for. Like I said, some people like these guitars, some don't. I didn't buy it because I'm a Framus freak or anything. I bought it because I liked the sound of the guitar and knew I could do something with it. But as you hear, it sounds nice. And when I was playing with the guitar, I knew from experience that this guitar would sound great tuned down a whole step. A whole step means that everything's tuned down one tone, 2 notes lower. So the E, what this used to be an E, it's now a D. This used to be an A, it's now a tone lower, it's a G, you know. This used to be a D, now it's a C. This used to be an F, now it's a G, or this used to be a G, now it's an F, should I say. This used to be a B string, now it's an A, you know, and this is another D. But it's still a standard D tuning. And the reason why this guitar was set up, it doesn't play very good when I tune it back up, because as you tune the tension up on it, the neck starts to bow, so I'd have to readjust the whole thing. And I don't want to do that. I want guitars ready to play in different tunings, and that's what a professional guitar player will do. Each guitar is set up for a particular need or use, and that's why I have this one. On this guitar, there's no bow in it, and it's like 40 years old, and there's no bow in the top. It's really solid. And an old guitar like this, once it's settled, man, it's not going anywhere. And a guitar mechanic can fix it just as well. And this one has a truss rod adjustment in it too. Some old guitars don't have a truss rod adjustment in them. That could be a problem. Like I was saying, you can usually spot the truss rod adjustment. It's got a cap at the top. Or you can look through this sound hole. This is a sound hole of your guitar, and you look through at the end right here where my finger's pointing to. Inside, you'll see a little hole. Not on this one, but on some of the newer guitars, you'll see a little hole, and there'll be an Allen head adjustment in there, and that's the truss rod end. Some adjust from this end, some adjust from this one. On my Gibson, it adjusts from the top, and the Hagstrom adjusts, the little Hagstrom over there adjusts from the inside. So you see they all are a little different. But there again, I bought this guitar because I like the feel of the neck, and the body sat well with me. Okay, now I've got one more guitar to discuss and a little bit of educating, and this is about the pickup thing. And the reason why I left that to the end is because I felt like when you're buying an acoustic guitar that was the least of importance, especially if you were a beginner. So now I'm going to trade. Okay. Now everybody always looks at this guitar and goes, ooh, ah, expensive guitar, because they see this called inlay. It's just ornamental. You know, it makes the guitar look good. You'll notice that on most guitars you have position markers or dots of some kind at the 3rd fret, the 5th, the 7th, the 9th, and the 12th. You usually have a double dot. Well, on this guitar we have a little leaf. Like you'll have the vine, but like for the 1st fret you have a leaf. You know, then 3rd fret where the position mark would be, you have another leaf. But in between, they just have the stem. So that's how you tell where I am. There's the leaf again. There's the leaf again. There's the leaf. So that's 3rd fret, you know, 5th fret, 7th fret, 9th fret. Now, this guitar has a pickup. It's built into it. You'll see it at the top. Some have the controls built in around the sound hole. Some don't have any controls, but they have a jack out, and you have to control it from an amplifier or a monitor. That depends on what you're using it for, whether that's good or bad. It's I don't buy a guitar again per model. I don't do that. This is an Ibanez made in China. I got a deal on it because there was some imperfections in the guitar and they didn't want to send it back, so I got a deal on it. There's a couple marks in it from shipping, and I fixed it, but it was new when I bought it. There's nothing wrong with buying a Chinese guitar. Again, now this one is a solid top guitar, and I think they go for around now. When I bought it, 'cause I got a deal on it, I got it for $700 with a hardshell case. Buy a case with your guitar. It is so hard on the instrument, and you look like an amateur, and nobody will respect you. You're going to go to a guitar technician and take your guitar and spend the $60 or $70 to set it up. If you don't have a case, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. That's like buying a brand new car and putting worn out tires on it. Don't do that. Figure that into your budget. A gig bag is even better than no case. Don't buy a guitar and then not buy a case. How many times have I seen people that don't know what they're doing, go into a music store and they ask about a nice guitar, then they don't want to shell out the extra 50 to 75 or 80 bucks for a hard shell case to protect their investment. Absolute stupidity. Don't let me catch you doing that. I'm going to lecture you for 2 hours on it. It's hard on the instrument. You got to move your instrument around if you're going to take lessons or jam at a campfire or move it around. It's got to be in a case. You got to take it out of the store. You got to take it home. It's got to be in a case, okay? All my guitars have cases for them. And a lot of the more expensive guitars, they won't even sell them to you without a case. They won't warranty it without buying the case that was built for that guitar. But you can buy a generic gig bag for like 30, 35 bucks, a fairly decent one. And that'll protect your guitar. I would say, sometimes I carry my expensive guitars in a gig bag because I've got like 3 or 4 guitars to carry. And the acoustic is the easiest because it's lighter. And I can throw that on my back and then carry the heavy electrics. Like maybe I'll have a bass in my right hand, an electric in my left, and the acoustic on my back, right? This guitar's got a cutaway. A cutaway is an area. Notice how, like on my other guitars, it has the same shape that I have on top here at the bottom. But this is a cutaway to reach up to the higher frets. Now, for a beginner, that's not exactly important. And even though I've been playing for a long time, a lot of my acoustics, as you'll notice, don't have cutaways. Again, I didn't buy them to play lead guitar, and I played them because they had a certain sound to them that I liked. Now, this guitar was, I would consider my go-to guitar. This is why it's got a pickup in it. My Gibson Hummingbird, the one I first started with, is a guitar I'd use in a recording studio with a like $8,000 Neumann mic sitting in front of it in an isolation booth. This guitar I'd use working in a band. It's great working in a band. It's got a really good pickup in it. It sounds really good. The neck on it's very similar to my Gibson, slightly narrower this way, thickness-wise, but about the same width. It's a solid top with, I guess that's mahogany back and sides. I wasn't too worried about it. Some are rosewood. Again, I just like the sound of the guitar. Now this one, when I bought it for reasons of wanting a guitar with a pickup. It sounds good unplugged. It sounds good unplugged too, but it really sounds good plugged in. And that's what this guitar's job is when I'm doing a gig. This is my gigging guitar for live performance. And it's been a great guitar, and again, it needed setup because I got a deal on it. But look, if you're buying a guitar and you're paying $700 for a guitar that you'd normally pay $950 for, spend the 75 or 80 bucks or even $100 it takes to have it set up, and you still got yourself a deal, because no matter what, if you buy the $900 guitar and it's got no blemishes in it or mechanical issues, you're still going to have to get it set up. You're still going to spend 50, 60, 75 bucks on it. So if you can get a deal and it's fixable, by all means. Now, the cutaway isn't that important, but the pickup is. If you want to buy a guitar and put a pickup in it, unless it's a really expensive guitar, it's cheaper to buy the guitar already done up with a pickup in it. Because if you buy a pickup separately, you have to pay the technician to put the pickup in. The thing is, when they're done at the factory, they buy thousands of these pickups, and they get a deal from the manufacturer on the pickup. This is a very good pickup in here. It's a Fishman, made for Ibanez, but it's a Fishman. And it's a great sounding pickup. And the guitar was built with that in mind, right at the manufacturer. No modifications had to be done. They constructed the guitar around the fact that it was going to have a pickup in it to begin with, which is a good point. So it's actually cheaper to buy the guitar with the pickup in it. If you decide you want And that's why I say when you go to the store, know what you want ahead of time. That's why you're watching this, and hopefully you're gaining the knowledge you need to help you make that an educated decision. And so you won't be a burden to the people at the music store, and they'll be able to help you out. This has got fully enclosed machine heads, and they're gold. The gold doesn't matter, doesn't make it any better, it's just for looks. But they are fully enclosed, and they're tension adjustable at the end, like I was talking about earlier. And the fingerboard's fancy. You pay a little more for this inlay. It's abalone. It's like a shell, abalone shell inlay. This is done on a computer. Some of the old stuff was done by hand, and it was more expensive. Now, with laser technology and CNC machines, they can build it, and it's very affordable. So, I've gone over the headstock, the neck, the body of the guitar, the sound hole, the bridge, and the saddle, and the nut, and the machine heads. So you know all that. And I've just talked about the pickup. See, I would never put a pickup in my Gibson. Nah, defeated the purpose. That guitar was for studio recordings only. In the Hagstrom over there that I showed you earlier, one of my students bought one on my recommendation, and he put a pickup in it. And you know what? That sounded great. And it was still a good deal because the guitar was good quality for a good deal. And he got a good deal on the pickup, and he put it in himself. So it was worth it for him to do that. So there are times when you can buy an acoustic guitar and it's worth it to put a pickup in it. Say you find a really expensive guitar you really like and you really want a pickup in it. Again, take it to a luthier, okay? A luthier, which is a guy that builds acoustic guitars, or a guy that's an expert on acoustic guitars that does repairs. Highly recommend that. Okay, so action is really important for you people that struggle with bar chords, or for you people that will be struggling with bar chords, because if the action's slow enough and the guitar is set up really well, you'll have an easier time with it. Another recommendation for steel string guitars, I haven't talked about nylon string guitars, that's next on my list, a little blurb on that. When you go to your guitar technician, if you've got a weak hand and you've never played before at all, and you find all the other guitars and you've tried to play before and you find them all hard to press down, ask the guitar technician that you've chosen if he can get the action, the string height, the action as low as possible, and to put on the lightest gauge string he can. The lightest gauge string I know of are Martin Studio Specials, and they're 10. It's a 10, it starts at a 10. That's the most important. It's the high string kind of decides what the rest of the strings thicknesses are going to be. So you could say to a guitar technician, I would like a 10 gauge acoustic string and as low as an action as I can. Some technicians will be opinionated and they'll say, no, you shouldn't put a set of 10s on your guitar. But I will do that for young girls, young boys that are learning to play on an acoustic guitar. I'll get my technician. My technician happens to be somebody that I train myself, and I'll tell him, this is for a child. She's 11 years old, and she's got small hands, so I want a really thin, like light gauge set of strings, the lightest we can, and a really low action. And he'll do that for me. He'll get it as low as possible for that guitar. Okay, so those are just words of wisdom from me on that. Now I'm going to switch guitars one more time. Now this is a beauty. This was a real score. This is a nylon guitar, and it's an Ovation. If you've never heard of the Ovation before, the Ovation has, for lack of better words, without getting complicated, a plastic rounded back. It has a wood neck, wood top. Everything else is wood on it, but it has this plastic bowl on the back. Some people don't like Ovations at all. They figure that a wood guitar is the only way to go. Again, I've never bought a guitar by name or style or anything. I buy a guitar because it does a certain job for me. Now, if you're looking for advice on a classical guitar, I'm not really the guy to go to because I'm not a purist as far as a classical guitarist goes. That's a specialty. But if you're thinking about buying a nylon string guitar, and that's what this is, a nylon string guitar with a pickup in it. Yes, it does have a pickup in it. It's an old one. It's from the 80s, early 80s, and it's got the pickup adjustment up here in one spot. This is one of the earliest guitars with a pickup in it, the Ovation. Glenn Campbell used them a lot. Richie Sambora from Bon Jovi used them. There's lots of great guitar players that used Ovations over the years. So they're proven they're very good quality guitar. This one new was like definitely in the close to $3,000. I bought it used because this wasn't a popular guitar, and the reason why it wasn't popular is because it's a nylon string guitar, and it's electric, and it's an Ovation roundback, and it's got a truss rod in it. And all the purists, nylon string purists, like classical guitars, would tell you that's not a real classical guitar because it has a truss rod in it. They're purists. And they'll also tell you not to play your guitar with a pick, to play it only. And I've got nails. I do play my guitar with my fingers like this. You know, finger pick it, and I can. Now you hear this guitar has a lot different of a sound. You know, you can strum it with your fingers or with a pick. I use a pick too. Now again, the purists will tell you that's a total no-no. That's blasphemy. Musical blasphemy. It's disrespectful to their craft. Hopefully my classical guitar teacher from way past doesn't see me doing this because he'll cringe. He'll be upset at me. But the truth is that there's lots of players that use picks on nylon string guitars and get nice sounds, and whatever sounds good is okay as far as I'm concerned. But that's not always true for the people that are wrapped up in tradition. So what do I do with all this? What I'm saying here is that if you're thinking of a nylon string guitar, the tension on a nylon string guitar, the string tension is less, because it's, even though these top strings look like they've got metal wrapped around them, and they do, they have a thin strip of metal wrapped around. Underneath it is a nylon core. It's not a steel string. You don't want to put steel strings on a guitar that was made for nylon strings. It will wreck the guitar. It will definitely pull the top up. You don't want to put nylon strings on an acoustic guitar that was designed for steel string, because it won't sound very good. It won't project very well. This guitar was designed for nylon strings. It's got a wider neck. It's like a classical neck. That's the downfall to a nylon string. Easier to press down, less pain from your fingers to develop calluses, softer sounding. So somebody with a small hand that wants to just strum. I mean, a nylon string guitar works. It worked for Willie Nelson, it worked for Earl Klug. I mean, it still sounds good even with a pick. I use my pick and my fingers. But the downfall to a nylon string guitar is, first of all, they're real temperamental when you first string them up with new strings. They go out of tune quite a bit because they stretch a lot more than a steel string. Two, they have a very wide neck. So if you've got a small hand, you might struggle with that. Bar chords are definitely more difficult on a nylon string guitar. But again, there's no law that says you can't get yourself a nylon string guitar. And like I said, this one I really love. This one I bought for $450 and put about $250 in labor into because it was in rough shape, but it came with a case. But it sounds really nice now. It plays really great. But I use it for certain styles of music, right? Again, this one's tuned down. This one's in D. You know, a whole step lower, D standard. all my acoustic guitars have a unique sound to them, all their own personality. Again, I didn't pick this guitar because it was an Ovation, or because it wasn't, or whatever. I picked it because I was looking for a nylon string guitar like this with a pickup in it that had a good feel and good sound. And when I saw this one, I went, ooh, I've seen Glenn Campbell play these, and he had a good sound. Let's check this out. And I really, really, really liked it a lot, but it needed some work. So I bargained. It was a private deal. And I bargained and got it for $400, and then put another, a couple $100 into it at least. Maybe $250, $200, $250, somewhere in there. But it's worth it, because guess what? This guitar, when it was new, was $2,500. So I've still got a really, really good quality guitar at a very reasonable price, and it came with a really nice molded hard shell case. Handle needed to be tightened on it with some new rivets, but other than that, once I got her all together, and I've had this guitar for probably 10 years now, close to. So yeah, it was a real nice guitar. So you see, price isn't an issue, style isn't an issue. It's a nice looking guitar. I think it looks nice. Like I said, some people don't like the rounded back, but the rounded back is, I could get into a big discussion over the rounded back, and I'm not going to do that this day. But it was designed by an engineer that studied sound waves, and these guitars sound great plugged in and are used when you're used in a live situation. I still think one of the best sounding acoustic electrics is an Ovation. Again, that's an opinion, right? You have to make that decision for yourself. If you're buying an electric acoustic, ask to plug it in, because eventually you're going to have to buy an amp for it of some sort. For a lot of the church players, the worship players, they'll plug straight in using a direct box. But you still want to hear what the guitar sounds like, so plug it in and get somebody to play it plugged in. Compare guitars. Some pickups or some guitars have more adjustment than others. On my Ibanez, which is back behind me right now, over to my right, on my Ibanez, that has a lot of EQ adjustment. It has slider adjustment. It has this one has very little. It only has a volume and treble bass control. One way goes to treble, but this is an old guitar, and actually the pickup in it's really good, and I can get a good sound out of it anyways. But depends on your experience, depends on what you want out of your guitar too. Either way though, the Ovation is a good guitar. Even the lower priced ones that are made in Korea, some that are made in China, they're fairly good. If you like that style of guitar, they're actually a fairly decent instrument. I've got over here is an Ovation Applause, which is a Korean, and that's a bass, acoustic bass, and it's got the round back on it too. So even for you bass players out there, I have an acoustic, and that one's got a pickup in it too. But a lot of times I use it when I'm playing at the beach or something, or jamming with my go on a camping trip or something, and you want a bass guitar, there you go. There's an acoustic bass for you. And who would think of bringing an acoustic bass to play at a campfire, eh? Only a crazy riff ninja. Anyways, I hope that this has informed you and given you a view on how to buy a guitar. I truly want this to help you make a good, educated decision. And I hope it helps you. And if you like the way I've taught this, and you like what I've been teaching, why don't you come and check out some more at my Riff Ninja Academy at riffninja.com. And why don't you check out, I've got a 3-day free trial for you too, if you like. Come and check it out once you get your guitar. Come back and see me and have fun.